We are currently mere days from getting the 7.0 trailer and I am so hyped. This is my first expansion release where I actually get to be up to date on the things that are happening and I can take part in the hype and the theorizing and just all the fun, and I am so excited. So before the trailer comes out, I figured I should put up my personal theories on what we're gonna be seeing. So we can all see how probably way off I'm gonna be, but it's gonna be fun, and that's kind of the point of this. The background footage is just a random leveling dungeon I did last night. Please ignore how terribly bad I am at healing in it. It was 3:30 in the morning and apparently I tend to zone out at that point. So the poor tank did end up dying once through the dungeon. Now my understanding is that the developers have said that they are not going to be continuing the story of 6.1 to 6.4. It's kind of its own contained story. And something is going to happen in 6.5, which is going to lead into the 7.0 expansion. So we can kind of rule out the 13th from the equation then, because that's what we've been doing so far. So I am curious if we're gonna mess up things really badly, and that's why we're gonna have to deal with something at home. So for now I'm gonna rule out the 13th from the equation when I think about what we're gonna do next, but I do believe we're going to one or more of 3 following locations. First, and what I think is most likely, is Miracidia. Now while they said the 6.1 to 6.4 story is not meant to lead into the next expansion story, they've still been mentioning Miracidia a lot as of late, both in the main story but also in side content. Not to mention the current extremes are the Warring Triad. So it just feels like we've been hearing a lot about dragons and Miracidia and the Elegans. And Miracidia is definitely an interesting place. This is the home of Bahamut before he became, you know, the Bahamut of the falling meteor and everything. And it's a land with variety of different races, including centaurs, which we haven't met yet. And considering we're going then southwards, we might also have like a pit stop on some of the southern islands where the Lalafell come from. That would be really fun, I say, as a Lalafell. Now if we're not going to Miracidia, I think we're going to the New World. The Blue Mage spells originate from there. We do have some clothing items from there, and otherwise don't really know anything. This gives the developer complete freedom to make this whole new land with cultures and stories to explore, but it's going to lend itself really well to the new jobs and could expand the Blue Mage lore. This is also a really big continent. We can see it from the moon, so we can probably do something with that. Now, my personal theory is that I think we're going to be visiting the homeland of the Hrothgar and Viera, either in the starting story or more likely in the patches. Both areas have been under the control of the Garlean empires for a while now, and with everything that has happened in Endwalker and the Garleans have now fallen, well, there's gonna be some consequences. They have like a lot of areas that they've been controlling for a really long time, and suddenly the people who have controlled these areas are just not really there, or they don't have the same power behind them anymore. So dealing with the consequences of the fall of Garlemald would be really interesting. I think this could potentially be related to a story of the rebuilding of Garlemald and sort of finding it a new place in the politics of Eorzea. But I don't think these 2 places would be part of the main areas, simply because they're too small. But they would be really interesting to go to, and I think it would be really good for us to get to go to them as well, because the Viera and the Hrothgar are the 2 races who have the least lore, and we've never really seen where they come from. We have seen them on the first, but that's not really the same thing. And with now male Vieras being in the game, and we're getting most likely the female Hrothgar in 7.0, it just feels like it's the right time to go explore their homes. But again, I don't think these 2 nations would be enough for a whole expansion. So I think they're gonna be sort of a side thing that we do either in the later patches or sort of just an area we go to for a bit. I think it's more likely that we're gonna go either to the New World or Miracidia, but I'm unsure which one I think is more likely. Now onto races. I believe we will finally be getting the female Hrothgar. That's what the developers have been saying. We haven't seen any images of them, but I hope we get to see them during the FanFest. Now, I have heard the developers talking about not really wanting to add any more races to the game, so I think it's really unlikely we get any new ones after this expansion. But while we're not getting any new races, we are definitely getting new jobs. And we have been told the new jobs is something that hasn't been previously in the Final Fantasy series. Now, I don't know all of the jobs that have been in the Final Fantasy games. I just simply have not played enough of them to know. But we're probably getting a physical range DPS and a magical range DPS. Both the roles only have 3 jobs for them, if we don't count the blue mage that is, compared to the 4 jobs for the tanks and the healers and the 5 for the melee DPS. I would be very surprised if we get yet another melee DPS. And after some talks with the FC, I have sort of 3 jobs that might be coming in. First is for physical range DPS. I think the most likely job is going to be some sort of a hunter, trapper, maybe a pet class. They might be using a crossbow and trap, and using a pet to assist with their damage. I think it would be really fun. I would love to see a pet class, but at the same time, I wonder like how well it would work. I feel like they've been scaling back on the pet classes so far. Now for the magical DPS, there are 2 theories I have. Personally, I thought necromancers, though I don't know why. And I'm not sure they would ever have a playable necromancer simply because necromancers are kind of pushed to be the bad guys. But I mean, we do have black mages, which are shady as hell, so why not necromancers? I think it would just be really fun. It would be a really different class to have. Obviously the necromancer would be a pet class, but instead of having like a living thing with them, they have something they summoned up and is very much not alive anymore, but just reanimated. Now the second magical job I think might be coming actually comes from Iri, who is a friend of mine, who thought maybe we might be getting some sort of a shaman type caster, someone utilizing totems and nature magic. This would be especially fitting if we're going to the new world. And as someone who used to play shaman in World of Warcraft for a while, I would love to see some totems. I think it could be really fun. Now, unlike other things, I don't think we're getting a deep dungeon next expansion pack. It seems we're getting one every 2 expansions, so we can kind of rule that out. I do think we're going to continue with the variant dungeons, and I am just hoping and praying that the mechanic of following NPCs and having to hide from them that we had in 6.0 is not coming back. I don't think it is, because they seem to have discarded that mechanic when people just overall did not like it. But I think they're going to continue with the new mechanic where we have the NPCs actually following us. So we get a quest, 2, 3 NPCs are going to follow us, we can walk around and talk to them. I quite like that one. And I'm excited if they're going to try something new in 7.0, because the developers are not afraid to try out new things. And sometimes they really work and sometimes they don't. And that's perfectly fine, because how is the game going to get better if we don't try out new things? But yeah, these are my theories. So if we recap this, I think we're going to either the New World or Miracidia, and we're going to have side content with the Hrothgar and the Viera homeland. And sometimes during the expansion pack, we're probably going to start rebuilding Garlemald. We will be getting the female Hrothgar this expansion, but we're not going to get any more races after that. I'm not quite sure what job we're getting, but I think they're definitely going to be either a magical ranged or a physical ranged DPS role. And those are sort of my theories. Now tell me, what are your theories about the next expansion? Let's talk about it in the comments, and if you want to make sure to see my reaction and thoughts on the trailer when it comes out, make sure to subscribe and be there and interact with the video, comment and like and so on. I think it will put a smile on Emmett's face. But for now, thank you so much for watching, and I hope I will see you next time.